I'm here today with Pam, who's the Vice President of Global Study Operations at BioMarin. We're really excited about this. We're going to be learning more about BioMarin, its clinical studies, clinical operations, dedication to diversity and inclusion. And so to start, Pam, could you share more about your background, how you came to BioMarin? I know you've been here for a while, you were telling me about it, and what's kept you here so long? Would love to learn more.
So I am the head of the Global Study Operations team, and that team is accountable for setting up, overseeing, and delivering on the clinical trials, both registrational trials as well as post-approval trials for the BioMarin portfolio. When you talk about rare and ultra-rare clinical trials, you have to start thinking differently. The number of sites available to us is smaller. And so with the current landscape for rare disease, we really look at where can we find sites that can accommodate the complexity of the trials that we have.
You've dedicated yourselves to making sure that you have diverse and representative clinical studies. If you're doing a study in diabetes, okay, and then not super hard, or in obesity, it's not super hard to get a patient population. In a rare condition, you're lucky to get a patient. But you guys have committed, BioMarin is committed to making sure that your clinical studies are diverse and representative of patient populations. Can you tell us more about that initiative and what you guys are doing around that?
So, in the past, we would spend quite a lot of effort reaching out to sites, searching Google searches, past sites, getting recommendations from our CROs, and that time that it takes to continue to reach out to these sites to understand what is their background. Do they in fact have the staff? Do they have the patient population? And do they have a diverse community? That took a lot of time. Currently, because of the advance of technology platforms, H1 being one of them, we are able to decrease the time it takes for that initial vetting of our sites. And this has proven to be an efficiency gain for us in the clinical operations world. I say that because when we look for sites now, we can go to the platform and we can put in the criteria that we know we're looking for, such as using the indication, using the ICD codes, looking at, and if we take the US, what are the regions that we're looking to explore for this particular indication? And that allows us to find out immediately how many clinical trials, what's the patient population, do they have the age range of population that we're looking for? So these technologies have really allowed us to be more effective and efficient as we get that first initial list of sites that we want to reach out to. Because this is such a commitment for us, we have focused on two general areas that we want to explore more. One is we've created a dedicated clinical trial diversity working group, and that working group is focused on three major areas from my perspective. One is to really understand the patient advocacy groups, and this allows us to hear directly from the patients. What are they looking for in clinical trials? Then if we look at the investigator sites, we're able to identify where they might need some additional training on diversity themselves. So we are actually offering sites that are interested unconscious bias training, for example, for people
Amazing.
to become aware. And then finally, and kind of most importantly, is the regulations. They're constantly changing about what is expected of the industry for clinical trial diversity. And so this team is also dedicated to seeing the new regulations and making sure that we are including those in our processes.
Are these new regulations, I saw the FDA guidance, do they apply to rare conditions as well?
So, that's an interesting question because we've been trying to get that answer.
Okay.
The final answer really is yes, it should. And I think, for us, just even being in a rare population, it actually, when we look at our benchmarking data from the past to see where we've fallen out, we do have a rather diverse population across our clinical trial portfolio.
So you were self-imposing this before any regulation, and the regulations are
Exactly.
putting a stamp
We
on
got
it.
a little concerned about what the guidelines and barriers may be, but in actual fact, I think the bar is going to be higher for larger companies, larger indications.
Exactly, yeah.
But still, we do consider it very important because we want to make sure that we are helping underserved communities. And then the other aspect of something that we within Global Study Operations are really focusing on is how can we make sure we decrease the patient burden from an operations perspective. So let me give you an example. Typically, and I would say even pre-pandemic, it was very unusual for us to use home health care as well as telemedicine.
Yeah.
But so there have been some silver linings of the pandemic, and one has been that this in fact is now a much more accepted practice. The benefit has been that it opens up clinical trials to populations that may have been concerned with the number of on-site visits.
The travel, the cost, all those elements.
And losing work days or school days. So by instituting more routine home health care or telemedicine, we now open the availability for them to participate and decrease the ability for them to have to miss work.
So that helps with the goals around diversity.
And the other area too, to make sure that people feel comfortable in the clinical trials that they're being asked to participate, it's partnering with the sites to find out what are the multilingual patient-facing documents that we can provide in advance to make sure that it's not being presented to people in a way that maybe doesn't resonate. This way, it's actually something that they can take on board and truly understand what is being asked of them and allow them to ask the right questions so that they're making the right choice when they join clinical trials.
Honestly, though, hearing all you're doing, it is far along. Like, you guys are pretty far along on this journey on promoting representation in clinical studies, which is needed. Yeah. We see the distrust around medicine, around our industry sometimes. Having a representative patient population participate builds trust.
Yes.
Builds trust in us as an industry, builds trust in the medicine, builds trust that it works for everybody. It's not just made for the few. So you heard it here. Pam's doing amazing work. BioMarin's doing amazing work to ensure representation in clinical studies. As a company that focuses on rare conditions, that's a big statement. It's amazing that you guys are really paving the way, leading the way in a lot of these areas. And so thank you for the time. This was amazing, Pam.
No, thank you. It's been great partnering, and we look forward to what's to come.
Same.